Hey, Joe. It's Pride. What is the favorite letter of the vampire in the LGBTQIA plus? Oh wait, no, not the letter, but their favorite subsection of the LGBTQIA plus.
I'm gonna restart this whole episode again. No. Um, I'm gonna guess.
It's
Oh, is it?
bisexual. It's bisexual.
Oh, I was gonna go.
We're back, bitches. Welcome to Uncultured Universe, the podcast where friends and lovers show each other movies, TV, music, or books just to get a little bit more cultured. I am your humble host, Justin, and with me, as always, in the Uncultured spot is Joe. Joe, how's it feel to be back in the saddle?
Yes. We are back after a kind of ad hoc 3 month hiatus, and that's what listeners really love about a good podcast is like extremely unpredictable release schedule, right?
Yeah, something that you can't quite put your finger on. You never know when the next episode's coming.
They like to be
People love it.
surprised when they see us on their feed.
Right, yeah. It's like running into an old friend that you haven't seen or heard from in a long time. You're not sure if they're alive or dead or if they're still together, what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. People are wondering about us. They're like, did they break up? Like,
They're
what's happening?
talking about it in the streets, in the sheets,
Yeah.
and in between. Speaking of, today we're kicking off our June series. It's Pride Month, baby. Everybody's out, everyone's having a good time. And we're going to start with a pick from me. We're going to be talking about the stuffed to the brim with sexy undead hunks interview with the vampire. Joe, you had never seen this movie before. Well, first of all, what did you get out of this movie from a surface level? What did you enjoy about
uh,
this?
I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Yeah, I had never seen Interview with a Vampire before. I knew more about like the TV show that is currently on
Yeah.
than the movie.
Mhm.
And we'll spend a second talking about the TV show because I think it dives into a few like interesting themes that the movie only like glosses over.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. I I always knew this as like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise pairing up, but I never really knew like what characters they played within
Mhm.
the story. I knew it was kind of like a flashback movie, and
Yeah.
I knew from like an awards perspective, this was like huge breakout for Kirsten Dunst, who
Yeah.
got the Golden Globe nomination for this movie.
Yeah, good for her. Like this was her fifth acting credit.
Wow.
Same year as Little Women.
She
Another.
is so immediately good in this movie. And yeah, shout out to Little Woman, previous UCU episode.
I know, right? Yeah, she definitely holds her own against these, titans of modern movies at the time. These Hollywood, hunks. For a lack of better word, like they were everywhere and throughout the '90s. So for her to kind of just go toe to toe with them and these kind of like Shakespearean, over the top kind of like line deliveries, super
Oh
cool.
yeah.
You love to
Oh
see
yeah.
it.
She has like this crazy role in the movie, which we'll get into, but it's obviously about vampires. She's this child vampire, and she basically has to sell the fact that she's aging behind her eyes while just like
Yeah.
staying in the body of this, what, like 10-year old, 8-year old.
Yeah.
But then by the end of the movie, you believe, like, oh, yeah, there's like a 50-year-old, really pissed off woman inside of her.
Yeah, because they spent, time in memoriam forever, essentially like decades together, which is crazy. Which I kind of wish they would have played up a little bit more. But we can get into all the meat and the nitty gritty, and so let's do a quick little overview. We'll give some background on the flick, and then we'll kind of just dive right in. Interview with the Vampire, directed by Neil Jordan. I looked at this guy's filmography, and I'm not too familiar with any of his other movies. Uh,
Can can I tell you something?
Tell me.
Okay, that name popped up when the credits were rolling at the beginning, and I was like, "Oh man, it's the guy who did the Sandman, who's like canceled now." Nope,
Oh,
that was Neil Gaiman. So I spent the
oh,
whole movie being like, "How are we going to talk about Neil Gaiman during all of
no.
this?"
Of all
Not
months,
not Neil Jordan, not
yeah.
canceled to my knowledge.
No, I don't think he's canceled. No, Neil Gaiman, famously an author of books, not a
Yeah,
director of films.
I was like, "How random that he directed Interview with the Vampire."
In 1994. Very strange, before he wrote all these other books. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, I'm not familiar with the rest of his repertoire, but he's had a long career. He's still making movies
Hmm.
today. So good for Neil. Screenplay by Anne Rice, who is the author of the Vampire Chronicles book series that this
Hmm.
film is based on.
Hmm.
There's like 13, 14 books in total, I think, 12 or 13,
Yeah.
which is insane. Uh, you find a subject you like and you just like milk it to death. But,
I
good for her.
I really appreciate a book series where like the book titles have almost nothing to do with each other. And
Hmm.
it's not always like Harry Potter and the blank. It's like the first one's going to be called The Vampire Chronicles. The second one's going to be called what? Like The Vampire Lestat. The third
Yeah.
one, Queen of the Damned.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, man. We're going to come back to Queen of the Damned a little bit later. But yeah, there's like the Prince Lestat, and there's like the Prince Lestat and his merry men or something crazy. They go, oh, and there's one about the devil, something cool, something crazy.
Oh my
Um,
god.
but yeah, she's had a long, prolific career. This first book, Interview with the Vampire, came out in 1976, which is interesting, and we'll talk about the
A
themes
while back,
surrounding
yeah.
that release as well. Of course, starring Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, Christian Slater, and, as mentioned before, Kirsten Dunst. Released November 11th, 1994. Do you want to guess some of the other movies that were out at the time that this movie was released?
1994 November. So I was but a babe. So that would have been like Oscar-ish season for the 95 Oscars.
Mhm.
Was it like Full Monty? Was it
Think of
like
the
the
time of year.
Birdcage?
Think of the time of year. It's November. What kind of movies come out in November?
I mean, the Hunger Games
Yes,
comes out in
correct.
November.
Hunger Games and Twilight movies. Yes.
Thanksgiving movies.
Uh huh.
Was it like a holiday type movie?
Yeah, there were two big, humongous holiday movies out at the same time.
In 94.
Yep.
Is that it's not Home Alone. Home Alone's way earlier.
Home Alone
Is it
2.
Home Alone 2?
Yep.
Home Alone 2 in 94.
Uh huh.
Home Alone 2 is the one that we grew up with, not Home Alone 1, which is
Hmm.
kind of wild.
Home Alone
Um,
2, I think, is in some parts the superior movie, but that's for a discussion of another day.
the base of Home Alone 2, like how he gets into the home alone, is very like contrived, but then after that it's all just like bigger and better than regular Home Alone 1. So it,
Absolutely.
it, it
Agreed.
is better.
Agreed.
Um, the other holiday-ish movie of 94, is it like a home for the holidays type thing? Is it
Who is the main caricature of the holiday season?
Krampus? No, Santa Claus.
The Santa Claus, starring none other Tim Allen.
Wow. I didn't
So,
realize that was so far back.
so
Wow.
you could go out into the movie theaters in November of 1994, and you could pick from The Santa Claus, Home Alone 2, or Interview with the Vampire. What a time to be
That's
alive.
that's huge. Imagine that triple feature.
Right? Yeah, you just spend the day just going through all the feels. This movie had a budget of 60 million, box office 223.7 million dollars.
I love
This
that.
movie was great. Good for them. You mentioned some things about the awards. This movie was nominated for Best Art Direction and Original Score the
Love
following
that.
year. Good for them. Let's see. Oh, I didn't even write down the answer. But they lost, I think, to The Lion King, maybe, for score.
I did see that they lost the score to Lion King, so that was Hans Zimmer's first Oscar.
Good for Hans. You
Oh,
love to see it. Uh,
Hans Christopher.
done it again. Uh, they were nominated for Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Makeup Effects at the Fantasia Chainsaw Awards.
Yep.
Autocorrect caught me on that one. The worst screen couple for Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt
Oh,
at
they
the
get a
Golden
Razzie.
Raspberry. Yeah, worst on-screen couple, which is hilarious when you think about it.
Whatever. Razzies suck.
But that's such a funny category. But then again, at the MTV Movie Awards, Most Desirable Male and Best Male Performance both went to Brad Pitt.
I look. I was also like perusing the Wikipedia of this movie. I love that Christian Slater got nominated for Most Desirable Male for this movie as well.
He's in it for 5 minutes.
He's in it for 5 minutes, but I mean, he was
It's
just hot
Christian
at the
Slater.
time. I guess.
It's Christian
Yeah.
Slater. Yeah, like
Who
it's like,
wouldn't?
oh, you got Slater? Oh man,
Why not? Why not
I
give
love
this movie 3 nominations for Most Desirable Male? Should have been
yeah,
5.
exactly. And we'll get into that because
Nothing
Jay,
could prepare me.
nothing could have prepared you for how hot and like the homoeroticism of this movie is just teeming. And this is great. But first of all, let's do a little cheers because it's been many, many, many months since we've done this.
We've lost track of our cocktails. Yes.
We absolutely have ever since we got rid of our Instagram. But nonetheless, we're bringing it back. I'm drinking this blood red, beautiful thing. I'm calling the Dark Gift,
Ooh.
Joe, and it is like smoky, vanilla, sweet kind of thing. We got liquor 43 in here. We got whiskey. We got red vermouth and Campari, and
Ooh.
some Angostura bitters and black walnut bitters, and a little bit of saline solution for that extra pop. It's great.
Oh my God, that
The
is
Dark
a gift.
Gift. Yeah. What do you got?
I mean, I clearly went in a similar direction. I'm calling this rat's blood. This is essentially a calimocho, which is a Spanish cocktail that is red wine mixed with Coca-Cola.
I've always wanted to try that.
It is not bad. You put some ice in it, and it's just like you think like, oh, Coke mixed with wine is like, but
It works.
no, it just gives it like a fizzy, kind of darker flavor mixed with kind of a lighter red wine.
Yeah, and it's like blood red, dark.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. That's so great.
yeah, like have
Well,
a good time.
cheers to you. Cheers to us. Coming back with the vengeance in the summertime of 2025.
I am sweating.
It's hot. It's hot out there. It's 86 degrees, and that's not even as hot as it's going to get.
Oh yeah.
All right, speaking of hot, let's dive into talking about just the film itself. I'm going to hit you with some interesting facts first, Joe.
Yeah.
There was a new adaptation being toyed with in 2016, and they were eyeing Jared Leto for Lestat, and like I'm so glad that was scrapped.
And then he went with Morbius instead.
He's like, I got a morb. It's morbin time.
It's Morbid.
Around about the same time, Anne Rice regained the rights back to her novels, and that gave way to the TV series kicking off in 2021, which is apparently very successful. I haven't spent any time with it, but what about you?
It's very interesting. I know a lot about it. I've seen like a ton of clips. I've never like fully dove into it, but it is, yeah. So there's been like 2 seasons so far. It's on AMC, and the 2 seasons have adapted basically what this movie adapts, which is the first novel. But it's a lot more about race, and it's a lot more about like specific like queerness. So like the main character Louis like is a queer black man in whatever 1700s 1800s Louisiana, and then the Lestat guy is this kind of same deal. He's like this mysterious French guy with abandonment issues who can't ever sit still for a second and just like goes on to the next thing. And then Claudia is also kind of a queer black character too. And so it becomes more about like overt queerness. It becomes more about like racial dynamics of all the time periods that they go through, about like how Lestat being like a white guy, and basically taking control of their lives in this way,
Yeah.
does that. And then it's also, I think it plays with the timeline of the book in that like it recognizes that there was this interview that happened in the 80s or 90s,
Mm-hmm.
whenever the Christian Slater timeline is.
Yeah.
But then they also revisit it in modern times. So like in the 2020s, he comes back and like redoes the interview with the guys. So
Oh, that's
it's the
cool.
Christian Slater's character is like older,
Right.
basically, and then
That's
it
fun.
flashes back to their original interview. And then Armand is in there too.
And Armand is there as well, just as he is in the film, which
And
is
he's
great.
also there.
And me too. Um, I love that. Like, I also have read that like they explore more of the overt themes that are more present in Anne Rice's books
Mm-hmm.
than were, explicitly explored in the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's more kind of like show than tell, I think, in some aspects. But also too, like this is the early mid '90s. It's still pretty taboo at the time to such a popular movie and have such big stars attached to explore some of those other themes or
Yeah.
like the main themes of the book. Um, but like real ones who know would be like, I like what they're doing here, but like they're kind of skirting around the issues a lot more.
Oh, this movie's gayer than like actual gay sex in a lot of scenes.
Oh yeah.
And so like yeah, the one note I had is like this it's maybe about how like the sex that they're showing on screen in certain scenes is different from like attraction and love.
Yeah.
Like they're having sex with like these whores and stuff, and like it's like these two hot guys and these hot women, but like the real like relationships in the movie are extremely queer,
Oh yeah.
literally like inches away from becoming like very explicitly queer, in
Yeah.
certain cases. And
Is yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's fun how it dances around that.
I'm imagining the or hoping the TV show is more like the last scene between Louis and Armand
Yeah,
when they're in the art gallery, where they're just this close and just mouth talking.
yeah.
I
And
love it.
like I think the movie kind of like dances around like, oh, they like Louis just wants to like know more about vampirism and like where he came from and stuff. And it's like, no, I think he wants to know where he came from, you know?
Yeah, he's trying to understand. Like, yeah, it's totally, and it always has been. Vampirism and like werewolves and supernatural, all that kind of stuff has always been directly tied, and a good parallel to just general queerness. Period.
Just
Of
the othering
othering,
of,
100%,
yes.
and like understanding, yeah, the where and the why and who am I and what does it mean to be this, and yeah, it's exploring that relationship between these two men who like illegally adopt this young lady,
Hmm.
and it's incredible.
They
uh
save her.
they save her.
I think the story like this probably works better as a TV series if you really want to like tell the full story. Although I think the movie has its merits and is like very like stylistically great.
Yes.
Um, One thing I thought is that the movie did feel like it could be eight different movies in one. Like
Sure.
it's told, the titular interview is kind of like a framing device between Brad Pitt and Christian Slater, and he's talking about his life, and it kind of flashes back to a lot of different times, and so you cover like 150 years or whatever, and each of those little pockets of time could be their own movie. Like it's like Brad Pitt first getting bitten by Lestat, and kind of you realize like they're living in this slave plantation house for a number of years, and the slaves are slowly starting to realize like, oh, Brad Pitt's like become a vampire. That's an issue.
Yeah,
Um,
they definitely scooted past that pretty quickly
yeah,
in the early part with like Tandui,
Tanya Newton.
Newton, yeah,
Yeah.
with her character. I was like, oh, look at her, she's such a baby. That's great.
Oh
Love
yeah,
her.
and he like frees the slaves right at the end. I'm like, that would not be that easy back then.
No,
Um,
no, no, no,
that
no, no.
probably did not end well.
But yeah, like the
Um,
different eras that they live through, yeah, could definitely be more explored. Like as they move into the city of New Orleans, or New Orleans, as he says, which I love, which such a fun thing. There's so much to explore there of, the relationship as they're, you know, uh, raising Claudia to be this new vampire, and but also like I would wish they would have explored more of like the implications of of changing such a young one so
mhm.
early, kind of a thing. But they're just like, yeah, we did it, and probably shouldn't have. Um,
Yeah, and I think the TV show does dive into a lot of that, but I think the movie chooses instead to make it like about the relationships between the characters, so
mhm,
you don't get as much of the actual story. A lot of it feels very kind of montagey,
yeah,
but you get these evolving relationships between these 3 to 4 central characters. So you start with like Louis and Lestat, and it's like your first queer relationship. It's a whole lot of like passion and one person kind of teaching the other and stuff.
and then let's
Except
get a
it's
cat.
like teaching about vampirism, and it's like, oh yeah, let's get a U-Haul. Suddenly you're living here, and then Lestat is like clearly the type of person who like goes from one hedonistic thing to the next, and so
Yeah,
he's into Louis. Louis has so much issues with being a vampire, which annoys Lestat, and Lestat is basically just like, why can't you just have a good
just
time?
enjoy it. This is what we are. Like, just live it. And he's like, I can't. I have my humanity. And
Yeah.
that's the central piece that we'll dive into in a second. A couple more other fun, interesting facts here. The sequel, Queen of the Damned, was a certified box office flop.
Hmm.
Anne Rice herself dismissed it completely, saying that the filmmakers absolutely mutilated her work. Um, in some circles, like it's kind of heralded as kind of sort of a cult classic, but largely it's a silly nonsense mess of it's I think it explores, which is a ridiculous premise, period, but it explores like Lestat's like 1980s rise to like being like a rock star, which is so silly.
Which the TV show also does. I have seen clips of that, and it is very fun. Have you seen Queen of the Damned? Do you know like what the story is there?
I don't even really know the story, but I know that it's got Aaliyah in it, and
R.I.P. Yeah.
yeah.
So I read about it. It's basically like it goes back into who the first vampires were, and it's like this
Ooh.
king and queen from ancient Egypt who were possessed or cursed by the spirit or a god or something, and they became the first vampires. And that eventually just like spread through the ages, and there's vampires and vampires and vampires, and Lestat kind of figures all this out. But there's like this rule where like if the original vampires die, then all the other vampires die, or like if they
Ooh.
get hurt, all the other vampires get hurt. So like there's this secret society that like keeps them, and just like kind of keeps them on ice or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're just out in the world, like hidden, and so these original vampires, the Queen of the Damned being one of them, are just out behind the scenes of all of this.
Is Aaliyah the titular, aptly named Queen of the Damned? Is she the queen?
I believe so. Yeah.
Amazing. Love that. Good for her. But also RIP.
All right.
But good for her. One last thing. The band Savage Garden, like a Chicky Cherry Cola?
Yes.
They got their name from Anne Rice's description of a savage garden being a metaphor for life's raw, immoral force, overpowering
Wow.
overpowering any quest for existential purpose or
Wow.
ethics that you self-impose on yourself. So like such a deep cut for them to like Savage Garden. That's our band name. But then here's, ooh, I want you. Don't you know
Ooh,
that? Want you? Don't you know? Which that song should be on the soundtrack to the TV show, if it's not
ooh.
already, because that's all it is. That's what Lestat wants. He said, "Ooh, I want you, Louis. I don't know if I need you, but I'd die to find out."
I mean, one of my thematic notes for this movie is like it's a movie about wanting things and then not wanting them.
Once you get them, you're like, never mind.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about like a little bit of a connection and why I picked this movie and why I like it. So this was gonna be my original pick for Pride Month last year, but we ultimately punted it for some reason or another. But this is my pick because this can be heralded as like a bi awakening in some semblances of being like, hey, these are like performers or actors that I'm familiar with, but seeing them in this setting and acting out these kinds of things with other same sex characters is like doing something to me.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed this. Um, so like, and also too, I'm a spooky bitch, you know that. So I picked
Oh
this
yes.
one too. This has some elements of horror in it. There are some gory, spooky bits that show up. Um, but yeah, like I remember seeing this movie probably in like middle school or whatever, and being like, huh, this movie's pretty cool.
I
Like it's got vampires, but like it's a different take on vampires, you know?
I wonder how like hand in hand this movie could go with something like The Craft, which is more on like
Yeah,
the bi slash like lesbian side of things as opposed
sure.
to the bi slash gay side of things,
Mm-hmm.
which does tie into one of like my notes here is like they were doing big stuff with hair effects in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So like the wigs are a whole nother conversation. We're going to talk about the wigs, but
Mm.
like digitally growing hair or digitally changing the color of hair must have been hell
Oh,
to produce, or heaven for like a very specific type of uh, graphic designer person.
yeah,
Like
an
the
effects artist for sure.
yes, the way that Claudia's hair grows in this movie, and then in The Craft, there's like the scene where like her hair changes all blonde and stuff.
Yeah,
They
very
were just
cool.
really pioneering supernatural hair effects at this time.
They were conditioning millennial, alt kids, queer pipeline kids to like always be wanting to change your hair.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that for them. Like I, the visual effects stand up for sure. Something about a mid '90s movies visual effects just for me stand the test of time.
Hmm.
A lot of it's done practically. I have no idea how they did the Claudia, like ringlet curling perfection when she's changing into a vampire, how they did the skin changing effect of Brad Pitt at the beginning, like where he goes completely like pallid and white and like the veins show up and his eyes change, like
Yeah.
flawless. It looks so good.
Yeah, I think you don't get a lot of those like cringy green screen 90s effects because so much of it is practical in this movie. Like all of the times that, and I hated this so much, but like all the times they basically just rip open a vein to be like, here, take this blood, put this blood over here, drink this blood and put it on that thing. Like
Yeah.
there's so much blood transferring from one way to another, and it
Hmm.
shows so much of like cutting skin, which must have involved like some sort of like you're wearing like a skin patch that's covering up a little tube that's in your sleeve and
Yeah.
stuff. Like oh, I love it. But like that was like I've realized I can't handle like slicing of
Oh
vein
yeah. Hmm.
things in movies. That's like a crazy ick for me. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of it here.
There's a lot of it because it's vampires. It's bloody.
Yeah.
You love to see it, but like I grew up like seeing this movie a bunch, and interestingly enough, my dad also really liked this movie, and he loves the books. He
Interesting.
he's read the books, the first four. He owns the first four. Spoiler alert, Dad! If you're listening, you're gonna get the next four books for Father's Day. I don't think he'll listen to it, but I always thought that was interesting that like my dad really liked this movie, and I remember him specifically thinking Antonio Banderas' character was really really cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was privy to or able to kind of like cut through the literary fluff of it and be like, oh, this is a queer allegory, or like I see what they're doing here. I don't think my dad did that, like is able to do that.
It's just a good
Maybe
time.
he's just here for a good time and he can appreciate a good story.
Hmm.
But I think he would be interested to know, be like, huh, okay, I can see what they're doing. I can see that. Yep, that absolutely makes sense. Um, but it is also good to hear and see that like my dad doesn't immediately dismiss it of being like, oh, that's queer. I don't like that.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, you said it made so much money. I'd be interested to see like what crowds it initially drew and then who came back for like that second ticket, because it
Yeah.
has these like Hollywood mega stars, these kind of like even like action stars of the time,
Yeah.
and so you could draw any sort of audience from that. And then after the first viewing, it's like, okay, so who kind of dismisses this as being too queer versus who is like, okay, I'm interested, and I
I want
want
to see
to
that
I want to
again.
reevaluate this one more time. Slower, please.
hmm By myself, I'm going to go buy a second ticket and tell no one.
Yes.
Um, Surely that's happened, but uh, but I always appreciated like the atmospheric moodiness of this movie.
Hmm.
Um, Truth be told, the score kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I think
Really?
at some points it's a little over the top, but that was kind of like the moment in time of 90s big movies. Sometimes I feel like it was a little too like gallopy, a little too
Hmm.
excited. I feel like it could have been a little more downplayed, a little more morose to
Hmm.
obviously play up the themes.
It
Um,
is. It is an extremely morose movie. I I liked how physical the sets were.
ooh, yes.
There's so many like memorable locations that they are physically shooting in. There's and so many of them are like clearly sound stages, but it kind of leans into that. Like the all of the swamp scenes are like on a stage somewhere, and it clearly looks like that just because of the way the lighting works.
Yeah.
Um, but it really adapts that as like the stylistic look of the
hmm
movie. It's like we're going to shoot all of these like 1700s scenes in straight up studio lighting at night because everything has to be at night because this whole movie
They're
takes place at
vampires.
night because it's vampires. And so if we're gonna do this, it's gonna look good, regardless of the fact that like this would have just all been candlelight back then.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
But terrible, hard to light, hard to film.
and what you get is like this very like theatrical look to it, which then
hmm
translates into the last act of the film, which mainly takes place in a theater in Paris, and also like the catacombs beneath the theater, which
Yeah.
I don't know if that was real or not, but that set was incredible. Like
So
these
like,
these giant catacombs that they go into.
yeah, like I love that you touched on the set pieces because each piece that they move through is so like tangible and real and small. Um, Even though like I'm sure they probably wanted to explore more of the outside and walking around and bumping elbows with the aristocrats and all this kind of stuff outside, but like I love the cozy feeling of it. It kind of adds to that like claustrophobia a little bit. It adds kind of more to the horror kind of element of it.
Hmm.
Um, I do. This is one of my favorite depictions of vampires, um, because it's not like completely overstated or like over the top. Um, like modern, like I don't know, 2000 and up depictions of vampires, the modern vampire. It's just like I'm just a guy from the CW with like maybe a little bit of light powder on my face, but I'm a vampire because I say I am.
We're in the age of like glowing eye vampire. Have you noticed that? So
Mm-hmm.
like in the last few years in particular, like with a lot of the Mike Flanagan movies or with the recent like did you see the Michael B. Jordan Sinners movie?
I haven't seen it yet, but it's on
It's like
Prime.
it's like all the vampires, you could tell they're vampires because they have these glowing eyes that glow the same way as like animals with night vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the newest vampire look. So we've moved on from like pale twilight
Yeah.
into oh, you're gonna have a completely darked out face, but these kind of like bluish whitish
Yeah.
glow to their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I appreciate like the subtlety of this one where like, yes, they have pale skin, but like not crazy amounts. They don't look like porcelain.
Hmm.
But to me, what sells it is like the subtle like
Oh
veins.
yeah.
Such a cool touch. And the nails, like the long nails are like so like weird and creepy
Hmm.
and like they just add to the mysticism of it. But
It
also
really
go ahead.
well, it really is like a craft feat. And I liked how, again, in like the opening credits, they're listing off all the people who worked on the movie, and you don't get like a special effects person. They're specifically calling out like vampire special effects
There's
as this
one
one
dude.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean that's the whole movie. It's gonna all be vampires. But yeah, I there's several areas where this movie kind of develops a really iconic style in terms of the different pieces of like makeup and set design used. So I particularly noticed people's teeth, and then
Mhm.
also obviously the wigs.
Yep.
So the teeth was interesting because you get these vampires played by celebrities who arguably have like perfectly fine like celebrity
Sure.
teeth,
Yeah.
and you get the pointy teeth, but then I think they're all mostly wearing like some sort of veneer over their regular teeth as well. So it
Mhm.
gives it kind of this like gauzy, bigger than life teeth look. Like especially Kirsten Dunst, who has kind of like a really unique smile just in everyday life.
Yeah.
Um, they give her like kind of bigger teeth.
Mhm.
And I have no idea what they're doing with Tom Cruise, but like he kind of has a similar look as well, where it looks like not just the pointy incisors have been put in, but almost like an entire row of just like
Yeah.
animalistic, inorganic teeth on these characters.
Yeah, I do like that the teeth aren't the typical just pointy, two-fanged kind of a thing. They're a little more like tactical in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in some of the bites when they're showing them on like on a person's hand or arm or something like that.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Gives them a little bit more of like a dangerous razor sharp kind of feel to it without being so over the top that it hurts the performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
they're not
in
having to like talk around them.
no, and the which is great because a lot of the line delivery, and I touched on this earlier, like is so like overly like verbose and very like Shakespearean, adjacent, but it's of the time, 17, 1800s kind of a thing. And, I'm glad that they're not hindered by prosthetics or whatever.
And then I I have to talk about the wigs. We have to have
Let's
a
have
little
wig
bit of
talk.
a little bit of a wig talk. So this movie dares to pose the question: what if you were stuck with one haircut for your entire life?
Yes.
Because that is ultimately the biggest curse of being a vampire is they will look exactly the same
Hmm.
as when they're bitten. So you better look good when you're bitten.
You
Um,
better shave everywhere that you want to be shaved, get the cut that you want.
and I basically love how they make it a point of proving that like Brad Pitt cannot cut his hair, and that's why his hair is in a ponytail in the 1980s when he's being interviewed by Christian Slater.
Yep.
Like they show Kirsten Dunst trying to cut her hair to like have some sense of her own individual style, and it grows back immediately.
Cannot.
Um,
Can't do it.
and so, what becomes of that is this incredible wig moment where you automatically are forced to start like sorting things into tiers because of capitalism and the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Nothing can just like be itself. So I think Brad kind of suffers a little bit here. I don't know if his wig fully fits his face. I think
Yeah.
Tom Cruise looks a little bit better. And then I like how Kirsten Dunst wig does her make her look just like a little doll
Doll. Yeah.
character. But then nothing, I mean, could prepare me or arguably the world of 1994 when Antonio Banderas steps on screen
Mm-hmm.
and his wig goes down to like the waistline of whatever Kaftan he's wearing at the
Yeah.
time.
Uh-huh.
It's incredible. It shouldn't work for so many reasons, but it becomes like just in the hierarchy of cinematic wigs. It's like Catherine Zeta-Jones, Chicago, Antonio
This
Banderas.
interview
This
with the vampire. Yeah.
movie.
Like everyone take note. That is the pinnacle of male wigdom.
I was
And
just fascinated looking at it because, like, as actual hair, it doesn't make sense in like the volume and direction it's growing in out of his
mhm.
scalp, and yet the performance is like committed enough that like you don't question that this is this guy's
No, it's like
hair.
this guy is 400 years old, man. Like he's wearing the shit out of that thing. Like
He's from a different
he's
time
from a different era, you know.
than all of them. And I really, really was kind of surprised, and I loved how the movie approached that concept where it's like these vampires are constantly, well, not constantly, but they're creating new vampires as a way to like latch on to the new time period that they
Yeah,
find themselves in,
mhm,
because immortality is really like the biggest curse
for
here.
sure. Yeah,
And they find themselves like stuck in their own time, and the only way that they can live within these like centuries upon centuries is by grabbing someone from within this century and forming a deep relationship with them, creating them as a vampire so that they could basically suck out a little bit of modernism from them as
yeah,
well, so that they don't basically blow away as dust. It is a really cool way of thinking through that.
yeah. I love it. It's a fun, storytelling kind of piece moving through the decades, moving through the centuries,
Mm-hmm.
and how I think it was like towards the end of just before he comes back to America, where he has this realization of like, I'm kind of stuck forever and everything's moving perpetually and I have to move with it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a fun thing. Um,
And you can easily see the metaphor there with like the queer movement, because you always have like generations upon generations of queer people who are constantly changing the game and evolving what it means to be queer. And so you have these older queer people who fought for these things, and these younger queer people who are fighting for these things, and sometimes there's a bit of a clash there because like in a constantly evolving world we're sometimes fighting for different things.
yeah,
And so it's not like vampirism, but it's more about like who is evolving to better
survive.
match who.
Yeah, who's evolving to survive versus who's just surviving. Period.
who has picked a place to stop and they're staying there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love the journey of trying to find answers. That's Louis' whole thing of like his inner turmoil and trying to find a mentor or someone to guide him through it. So he goes to the elder queer across the pond to see how the Europeans do it, and they're just as fucked up as his previous relationship was,
Yeah,
if not worse. So I love that. Let's touch on some of the performances a little bit. Who for you out of the main cast is MVP?
I think it's Kirsten. I talked about like the movie is one thing between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise for the first half hour or so, and then it just immediately becomes something else the second she's on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And she's so young, and she's tasked with such like changes and shifts sometimes within a single scene
Yeah,
behind her eyes. So there's like the initial shift between like her being like an actual human dying child changing into a vampire. She has kind of like a rebirth moment and has to relearn a lot of things in that
mm-hmm.
case. And you can tell she's like kind of stronger than both of them in like a youth vitality kind of way. They're both a little scared of her. And she's got kind of these like psycho motivations, psycho
Yeah, dude.
inclinations. And then this is one of those areas where I was like, okay, this could be the whole movie. Here, it's basically it says like, yeah, they spend 30 years together as like the most chaotic trio in New Orleans.
Yeah,
And so what she then has to do is show that she's an adult inside
mm-hmm.
while struggling with being in a child's body, which is like its own kind of hell. And of course, she becomes a bit murderous as a result.
I love that turn. I love that whole montage of like teaching her, like living with her, and like like never in the house, Claudia, and like smacking her on the wrists of like she killed her piano teacher was just like hilarious. And
Mm-hmm.
that what's her inner struggle is that like she's forever stuck in child mode, and she sees the the woman that she will never become. So she wants to be her, so she takes her and kills her in her bed. Like it's so cool,
Hmm.
and like it's such a fun exploration of like, oh shit, yeah, like that is like what do you do in in that area from all sides of like as her parents or if you are a child vampire, like what
Yeah,
hell? What
I,
hell?
I mean, it's interesting because like they all three end up kind of mirroring each other in weird ways, like the way Lestat kind of uh, uses Louis as like a distraction or something he needs until he needs the next thing. Like Claudia is ends up more looking for like a parental figure as like that's her goal, and so
Mm-hmm.
when she figures like she can't always have Louis as the parental figure, she must have another one,
Yeah.
which kind of eventually leads to the downfall there. And that was kind of the only annoyance I had with the storyline is it ends so abruptly. I think just by necessity they kind of have to rush the ending a little bit. Like
Yeah.
they're in Paris, they meet this theater troupe. The theater troupe immediately clocks that they maybe murdered Tom Cruise,
Maybe. Yeah.
which is against vampire law. And then things happen very quickly, and then she and her new vampire nanny get murdered, and Brad Pitt goes on his rampage, and
Which is so cool.
there's less vampires in the world now.
Just a little bit less. Yep. I kind of enjoy Brad Pitt's um torturous, tortured soul kind of performance.
Hmm.
Kind of a sad sack, kind of brings the scenes down, but like that's his character. He's struggling with all the morality that comes with immortality. And he can't handle it. At every single turn he has to stop and ask questions, and Tom Cruise's Lestat is like, dude, you're fucking dragging me down, man.
Yeah,
Like just fucking live. And I love the dichotomy of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. They play off each other so well in the first half. They're
yeah.
so much fun to see.
Louis is like nightmare blunt rotation, and Lestat is like dream blunt rotation
A hundred
in that way.
percent. Yeah. Louis is gonna be like, why do the weeks repeat? Why does it go Sunday to
He's going to be
Saturday? It starts at
crying and
yeah.
just like apologizing for everything he's ever done to you.
Yeah, and Lestat's like, hey, let's rip another ice bong kind of thing, you guys. Like this is so much fun. Um, I love Antonio Banderas' Armand's role. Uh, it's such a fun, like, different flavor, and that's kind of the point, right? He wants to go to Paris to see how the European vampires do it, and there's such a lived-in, like, regalness to how that coven, or not coven, but like nest of vampires live. They live in the catacombs. They live underground. They are very performative with their theater de, vampire or whatever it is, and it brings that like European sexy allure to it. It's a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
I also love like the implication that Lestat is just a fuckboy who's like worked his way through the vampires of Europe and had to basically flee to America. And Armand's like, yeah, I hated him.
Yeah,
I don't miss him.
that guy sucks. Oh, he's your maker. Oh, sucks, dude.
Sucks to suck.
It sucks to suck. And then of course we talked about Kirsten Dunst being the all-star here, being able to like punch up and, go toe to toe with these, Hollywood behemoths
Hmm.
and, give these really strong performances. I love her blow up scene
Hmm.
of like, which one of you did it? And it's so convincing, just like this little tiny menace, murderous menace, just like demanding to know like who turned her and why, and like you have to live with this now. Like it's so fun. I love it. Um, all right, real quick in this last little bit, let's dive into some of the overall themes. A lot of the things we've talked about already is just sexuality, period, of this. I had this quote here, a couple quotes actually, that I pulled from the Wikipedia page. But Anne Rice said in 1996, on the homoerotic content of my novels, I can only say what I have said many times, that no form of love between two consenting individuals appears wrong to me. I see bisexuality as power. When I write, I have no gender. I have written individuals who can fall in love with both men and women. All this
Hmm.
feels extremely natural to me, and that's like on the bisexual pamphlet that you get once you like mark it on the postcard and you send it in and they send
Yeah,
it back. Like it's that quote.
like a toucan drops it on your doorstep.
Toucan, yeah.
I was just trying to think of a colorful bird. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Yeah, it feels very almost bordering on like poly in its
Mm-hmm.
queerness, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like these are just like people finding relationships in attraction in other people, like kind
Yeah.
of soul to soul, and it's not really as concerned with gender in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I had some thoughts on just like overall themes here. I talked about how it's a movie about wanting things. I also thought it's just it is a movie about like outgrowing your first crush, your first like
Mm-hmm.
queer relationship,
Yeah.
because they represent something so new and exciting, but then you see the world behind them and you realize like, oh, they're just like a single part of that. And so you see that happen with Louis and Lestat, where it's like Lestat represents this like way out of his turmoil, of his like really sad, depressing human life, but
Yeah.
then he kind of turns down Lestat at the end in favor of just living his life and figuring out more about what it means to be a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my big kind of like thesis about this movie is the idea of it's also about how familiarity breeds contempt, and
Mm.
like immortality being the curse there.
Yeah.
Um, because you have these vampires who are immortal, who are living forever with each other. And what that ultimately means is like they will all eventually get tired of each other and hate each other, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how much they love each other now, how attracted they are to each other now. Like it's only a matter of time until you three body problem away from each other or whatever,
100%.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so like it was funny that like romance has become so associated with vampires, when this movie so clearly shows that like love is fleeting
Mm-hmm.
basically. And
Even to the immortal, it is fleeting. Yeah.
I love how the Armand character puts it, where it's like a lot of these vampires just don't have the stamina for immortality,
Yeah.
is what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like you you don't like get to live forever, you have to live forever, and
Mm-hmm.
that comes with like everything you like, everything you experience will slowly start to fade.
Mm-hmm.
And so that forces you to constantly be searching out these new things, these new ways to feel, these new ways to relate to people in kind of a hedonistic way. And that's
Yeah.
where the Lestat character comes in. And so ultimately, immortality is a curse, and death is what makes life meaningful.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. Lestat is the exact vampiristic hubris of like living up immortality and like living with this dark gift kind of a thing. You know, you get to prey and be top of the food chain kind of a thing. This alpha predator kind of a mentality. But what ultimately I think the theming of dark gift, they mention it multiple times. You know, they kind of mention it in passing of like Louis's dark gift. Um, Lestat's like, you know, read that aristocrat's mind. You can tell that she had her husband murdered, and so I'm gonna kill her because why not? It's fun. He's like, read her mind, and he's like, I can't. He's like, well, the dark gift is different for everybody, but I think Louis's dark gift is his humanity. He has some semblance of his soul left, whereas every other vampire he comes into, even Claudia, like is hungry in every sense of the word to experience life, to feed, to like fuck, to like do all this stuff, but he is conflicted through and through,
Hmm.
and that's what all the other vampires, or that's why all the other vampires are drawn to him. That's why like he is this I don't know, like honeypot to these other to Lestat and Armand in particular. It's because there's like this intangible soul to him, like that ties him to humanity, and that's what makes him like so desirable. right? Like it's this companion who like manifests the very life force that they like suck away, kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
Just from the get go, this movie does not make it seem fun to be a vampire.
No, it's definitely the final season of The Good Place, kind of a thing. Of like you get to live forever in heaven, but like your brain will rot away, or like it loses all meaning, and
Yeah.
you'll want to kill yourself at the very end.
The unknown of death is what makes it all have meaning. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Also, the theme of fire is very prevalent in here.
Yes.
Louis always leaves this blazing trail of fire in his wake. Whenever he needs to move, he
I
just sets fire and leaves.
I am so glad you said that because I almost missed that in my notes. I had the exact same note. The only way they can move houses is by burning down half the surrounding area.
Yeah. Which is like a fun thing of just like that's how he handles his relationships. There's no like amicable breakup. It is scorched earth through and through. But also not to mention, vampires are canonically highly flammable. So
Mhm.
like wild that he just decides to torch every single place that he lives in or every place that he goes to.
Bit of a
Which is awesome.
self-hating guy. He's got some issues.
Yeah, you hate to see it, but I think he's an interesting character. He's a fun character.
I think he's doing
Uh,
okay.
I hope he's doing all right. Yeah, same. I don't know how he plays out in the books, but uh, one other like fun thing that I wanted to note is just like the general kind of just overall queerness of it. Like the book apparently opens with um, Louis kind of like they're like trying to pick each other up. Apparently,
Oh,
it wasn't like he was hunting him like as said in the movie, I think,
yeah,
but in the book it's like no, they were cruising for each other,
yeah.
and so like Christian Slater's character, you know, is just happens upon this vampire, but he also happens to have like a bag full of tapes, kind of a thing, which everybody did in the '90s. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, lots
Um,
of tapes.
so many tapes, and drove a Mustang. So good for them.
In case you got to record things.
In case you got to record things, you never know. Last couple final thoughts here. I'm going to talk about some my favorite quotes. I love the theme that Lestat brings up at the beginning and at the very end. I'm going to give you the choice that I never had.
Mhm.
I love that. It is very Lady Gaga, Born This Way kind of a thing. You love to see it. Um, the scene specifically where he comes back as like vampire reptile, which is so creepy and so cool,
Mhm.
with shrouded in the drapes or in the yeah, fucking window dressings, and you can't really see what he looks like, but he looks fucked up, and he's playing the same piano music from earlier. It's very creepy. I love it. And then the Claudia, you've been a very, very naughty little girl. So cool.
Tom Cruise gets to do some freak shit in this
Some
movie.
freaky ass shit.
Like, don't have Tom Cruise be the main character. Have him be like main adjacent or
Mm,
even kind of like main antagonistic a little bit here.
yeah.
He'll shine.
He shines. To me, like it's kind of a toss up. Like definitely, MVP goes to Kirsten Dunst, but I enjoy Tom character's depiction of Lestat
Oh yeah,
so much more than anybody else's role. Um, and then also this last little thing where they're talking in the sewers before they go and change Claudia. He says, "Evil is a point of view.
Mhm.
God kills indiscriminately, and so shall we. For no creatures under God are as we are, none so like him as ourselves." I love that. It's such a fun, like, guilt trip, gaslighting thing to get Louis back on his side.
Mhm.
So fun.
It's yeah, it's an interesting movie with some interesting ideas, and I love that it's like about vampires on a secondary level, but on a primary level, it's about like a fucked up relationship,
They're
and
so
that's what
bad
we're
for
watching.
each other, but you know that they had some good times. They're
Yeah,
terrible. Lestat is so toxic, and Louis just he's just there for a good time,
yeah.
and he wants to bring the party down by asking you really deep questions. Um, so yeah, I don't have an end game because I couldn't come up with one. I'm so out of practice.
It's
Uh,
okay. We are so back, as they say.
we're so fucking back. It's 2025. It's summer. It's not hot girl summer. It's not brat summer. I don't know what kind of summer we're in for.
I think it's going to be a Lord summer. That's what the streets are saying.
Lord's coming back.
Yeah,
Love that.
get into it.
Proud of her. Good for her. So that was Interview with the Vampire. I'm so glad you got to see it. We should probably do like a follow up where we watch a couple episodes of the TV show and kind of compare and contrast.
Yeah, yeah. AMC, which means it's on some streaming service out there.
Somewhere, yeah. The movie could also do with some male nudity. I think there
Yeah,
could be a butt or two.
I think all
Uh,
of that and more is definitely in the show.
Good for them. I love it. You love to see them push the envelope. So Joe, what are we doing next? If we're kicking it back to you, where are we going now?
Yeah, it's Pride Month. It's June. It's 2025. So we're going to talk about what I think is a pretty foundational movie for a lot of queer folk that I am very excited to talk with Justin about. And I am, of course, referring to Sister Act,
Oh
starring
yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg. We're going to talk about Sister Act.
I can't wait to have a Whoopi moment. She's our first is this the first Whoopi appearance in the canon?
Oh God, I think so. We haven't done any like Whoopi voice roles, have we?
No. And you've seen Ghost, right?
I
So
have seen Ghost. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, that would be my only other thing.
we'll talk Whoopi.
We'll talk Whoopi. We'll do some Whoopi talk. We'll have some Whoopi pies. And we'll come back and we'll do some Sister Act later in the month. And you'll hear from us in 2 weeks probably. But if you don't, like, don't text us.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. This has been Uncultured Universe. Catch us on YouTube at Uncultured Universe and probably on TikTok too at Uncultured Universe there too. I don't think we still have an Instagram, so don't go looking there. But we'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.